Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Peter Christian. I'm here with the host of the show, Diane Beck, with Windermere Real Estate. Diane has been helping buyers and sellers with real estate in the Missoula area for over 20 years and is very active in the Missoula community. Along with their trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on newstalkkgvo.com. 98.3 FM and 1290 AM. Hey, welcome everybody. It is Missoula Real Estate Today, and we are at a different location, a secret location. But our guests were able to find us, so that's that's always a good thing. We have folks on from Homeword, and since this is the holiday season, I think this is a really, really good time to have you folks on because of the important work that you do, kind of making dreams come true for folks. So Katie, let's start with you. It's good to see you again. This is not your first rodeo, right?
Great to see you, Peter. No, we love listening to your leaders, and we really want to thank Diane for giving us some airtime to tell people about resources that in the community to help them, make their dreams come true, like you said.
Let's talk about Homeword. I'm sure people might have heard the expression or heard the name out there. So who wants to define exactly what Homeword actually is? You're looking at each other, so
yeah, well, we can all add in there, but what we do in town is we develop and build affordable housing, and then we also pair that with education, which is such an important part. So we do the first-time homebuyer class in town. We do the financial fitness program, which basically teaches you everything about finances you should have learned in high school. And then we do the RentWise program for folks who are just trying to get into a rental and have some high barriers, and we help them overcome those barriers. So it's everything with housing, basically, because we believe that if you have a safe, healthy home, then you can be a productive member of society.
Yeah, and housing in Missoula is a particular situation because, first of all, I know I say this all the time, people get tired of me doing this, but you look at the Gallatin Valley and the Flathead Valley, they're huge, and they're hundreds of miles, and you can keep spreading out and spreading out and spreading out, right? Can't do that in Missoula. We have a little tiny valley and not a whole lot of room to expand, and more people coming in all the time. Mm-hmm. So tell me, how does Homeword tackle this? You have a very unique challenge. So Julie Pavlish is a home buyer educator as well, and you're new, right?
I am, you know. This is my first radio interview with you guys.
So
Pretty
first
excited.
of all, tell us all about Julie. Where are you from? How'd you get here? All that kind of stuff.
Yep, I am actually from Missoula. I have been in the financial education for about 13 years now, coming up on it. And so before this, I actually worked with the University of Montana helping students tackle their student loan debt.
Wow.
So entering into the next big purchase of their life, buying their first homes was a natural progression for me. And my passion for helping folks really get a good handle on their finances.
All right. So tell me, what is your philosophy about all this? And why, let me ask, why are you doing it?
Why? Because there is no one right way for everybody, but there is a way for folks to find a way to achieve their goals. There's no one right way to do it, but there's lots of ways to get there. And so being able to work with people and their particular situations is really important. And the services that Homeword actually provides really gets people that one-on-one help that they need, as well as providing just general education for folks.
So tell me about your client base, specifically, or generally speaking, who comes to Homeword?
Everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone.
All right.
Everyone.
Okay.
We were just looking in the Missoulian, and we were saying that, home prices in Missoula have risen 40% since 2010. Did you see that article?
Yes.
I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, we talk about that every week on this show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and
It's
just
a real
how
estate show,
the
yeah.
income tax.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, just how the income to house price is higher or the same as, say, Denver, Portland, Miami, and Seattle is what they kind of say. So folks have to have their ducks in a row much more than they used to. It's not as easy to get in anymore, and that's why the education services, the planning, and the time to build that up is so important.
Well, I being an old person, I will kind of tell you a little bit about my experience. The first home I ever bought, was here in Missoula, and it was it was on South 10th. No, I figure it was on South 8th Street, and the purchase price was $26,000.
No, I can't even imagine that. What year was that?
No, this was 1976 or
Oh,
1975.
my God.
And however, the interest rate was up around 12 or 13%. And my monthly wages, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
$500 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as you can see, it doesn't matter what time of history.
Yes.
There are always going to be challenges in getting into a house, right?
What's that house worth today, Peter?
That particular house is probably maybe $250, something like that.
Yeah.
I would imagine. But it was a little tiny house and it was not in great shape. But it was my first house.
Yeah.
So
That's
anyway.
that's amazing.
Anyway, and let me tell you, there were not wonderful people like you around to help me, especially since I came from a broken family, and so we didn't have a whole lot of financial education going on. So I basically, it's trial and error. That's how most people learn how to, and they make their mistakes when they're young, and then after that you're kind of on your own. So how does Homeword jump into that particular situation so that you don't have to learn from your own mistakes?
Well, the best part about it, so the first, the entrance point for most people is going to be our wonderful classes. We do these really in-depth classes, both on just the financial fitness class to get you all stable and ready to go, and then the first-time homebuyer class that takes you step by step through the process of buying your largest probably purchase you will make.
Okay.
Because it can be really daunting and it can be really stressful.
Well, do me a favor
to go through that.
and take me through. Let's say it's the first night. I'm assuming it's an evening class. It's the first evening of class, and people are sitting there and they're wondering, what are we doing here? So how do you start the class? What kind of things do you say to kind of break the ice?
Well, the first thing that we always go over in our classes are the advantages and the disadvantages to home ownership. Because the last thing we want people to get into is a home that they have buyer's remorse for.
Right.
So what are all, because owning your own home is great if it's for you, but home ownership is not for everybody.
Right.
So that's always the first thing that we start with is this a good choice for you as an individual?
I'm sure the questions you're asking people are, how long do you plan to stay here? Are you just going to school and then you plan to go back to Wyoming or wherever it is you're from?
Right.
If that's true, then maybe buying a house is not a great idea.
Right. Are you going to be a jet setter? Are you going to be off, building your YouTube brand every week, going to Tahiti and off to Mexico? Home ownership may not be actually for you.
Can I do that? I mean,
there's actually a career out there for this.
Okay, all right. Well, I haven't found it yet. So anyway.
And we couple that with the financial fitness class because people in general, we just all have a hard time knowing what those numbers mean. So what's fabulous once people sit down with Brendan and Julie for that one-on-one session, they'll get hard numbers. Like, here's what your payment would be. Now, do you think you can afford it? And where I step in is help them have that judgment. Like, can you afford it? What does this mean for your everyday life?
Right.
For you to jump from rent of $900 to a mortgage of $1,200. And that's hard.
Right.
We're just not taught that.
Go ahead.
Well, in building your budget, I have a love affair with my budget. I'm not really sure that's, my husband will probably listen to this and be like, yeah, it's fine. But really having that.
The other B.
Right, the other B in her life.
Right, yeah.
But really, Katie's worked with folks to dial in that budget so that you know your numbers. It's like we all have our, blood pressure numbers and all of our other numbers that we try to stick to. Well, your budget numbers are really important to know too. And being able to be like, yep, this is what I have. It's so comforting.
So what's the big hurdle in putting together a budget? One would think, I have this much, I spend this much, that's my budget, right? So, but it's a lot more complicated than that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely take it seriously. I think there's some real skills to learn in there, and I call that your hard skills. The soft skills are implementing it, right? That's your willpower, your discipline.
So what are the hard skills?
The hard skills are knowing how to actually have educated budget numbers based off real spending from the last month, while also looking at your financial big picture. We bring in something called the annual expenses, which is super valuable to judge whether you can afford a house. These are your garbage that happens every quarter, or, the sewer charge, the car tags, all this stuff that people know is coming, but they forget. And it also most times pushes them into credit card debt.
Sure.
So it's bringing in those pieces. It's knowing how to update it so that it's simple, easy, and fun. That's my standard. Most people want to like punch me in the face when I say that to them. I'm like, we're going to make this fun. And they're like, I hate you. But
Well, let me tell you what's really fun is knowledge. I mean, and knowledge is power. Diane and I talk about that all the time. And one of the things that is really revealing, no matter how old or young you are, is to start at the first day of the month and literally write down every penny you spend, whether it's buying a pop at the convenience store or going out to get groceries or paying the power bill or whatever. And then you get done with that month and you add up all that money you've spent. And I imagine it could be a good word is a good education for people, right?
It could be a daunting experience too. That's definitely analyzing your own budget can be really hard because you don't want to be so hard on yourself, or maybe you get to the end of the month and you're like, where did all my money go?
Right.
That's why it can be really good to actually work with a financial counselor while you're doing it, because they can help you see that it met a lot of your needs and a lot of your wants that month. It's just a matter of prioritizing your goals. And is your money meeting that?
and give you some perspective. People come in all the time and just think, I'm the worst. I'm in the worst. I'll never get out of this debt, or I spent too much. I'm like, let me make you feel better about yourself.
It's like that old Cool Hand Luke deal. What we have here is failure to communicate, right?
Yes.
And I think what happens is because our finances are such private things that we don't want to share them with our neighbors or sometimes even our immediate family, because sometimes mom and dad or grandma won't even know that you're
Or
having.
we don't even want to look at them ourselves.
Right, exactly.
And so actually looking at your budget yourself, I find really motivating for people because they're sick with themselves with how much they've spent on
Right.
eating out often, right? Or something, entertainment. And so I don't have to do that much work sometimes to get them to cut back on that. I just have to show them how they can have their eyes open and see it. Yeah.
And help reprioritize other goals. So like paying down their debt or working on having a holiday fund to buy their presents with so they don't feel that same stress that they have in years past.
So this sounds an awful lot like what they do in Financial Peace University with my friend Brandon Smith, who does this. And it's a class that you actually pay for, and people go in and learn how to rework their budget. But this is there a charge for your services?
So the only service that we charge for is that first-time homebuyer class, and that's
Okay.
usually because we're about 2 months out in our availability for seats for the class, because it's a really popular class.
Right.
All of our other services are free.
Okay. So tell me about the class. We got started, and I keep interrupting. I'm sorry. But you start out with you just introduce each other, say hello to everybody, or what? How does that work?
Well, we usually start. This is so I've gotten to observe the class twice, and this next month is my first time actually facilitating and teaching in it. So Brendan has really been has led the classes while I've been participating. But the classes usually start with we just drive right in. It's 9 hours of solid material.
Wow.
It's
Not
an
in one- not in
intense
one
class.
night.
We do it in one day on Saturdays.
Wow.
We do it in 3 weeknights. It just depends on the month in how we structure the class, but it is 9 hours of solid information. And so we don't dilly-dally a lot in the class. We get right into it.
Okay.
But you don't have to listen to me the whole time. That's the best part.
Okay.
We actually invite community partners in, experts in our community in their fields, to come in and teach a section of their class.
Go ahead, Brendan.
Professionals like Diane Beck, and we want to thank her for this opportunity to come in and talk about Homeword today. But besides Diane Beck, there's realtors, there's lenders, there's title escrow officers, there's home inspectors, there's home insurance agents. So we rely upon the professionals in the community to come in and educate the community at large. And they do this voluntarily. They come and do this on a monthly basis on their own time because they want to make sure that this experience is a fruitful one, an educational one, and a successful experience.
Sure. Well, we're talking with Katie and Julie and Brendan from Homeword in homeword.org. That's your website. And so as we move toward the end of this class, do you look in the people's eyes, Brendan, and see people they're getting it? And what does that do for you? When the lights start to come on and say, you know what, I think I can do this.
That's a great question, Peter. I learn something every month in this class, and I've been in the industry, so to speak, in the nonprofit housing world for over 20 years. I've been with Homeword for over 8 years, and every class I learned something. So even sometimes I'm a deer in the headlights, it's like, wow. So I think people sometimes get a little overwhelmed. It's a lot of information. It's not going to answer everyone's questions. 9 hours is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not going to give you all the building blocks to become a successful homeowner, but it starts you there. We offer free financial counseling services. Both Julie and Katie offers a wonderful service where you can get one-on-one counseling. So we highly stress in both our classes, the financial fitness and homebuyer education, for the clientele to come and see us one-on-one. There's no cost. Whether they come once for a 2-hour counseling session, once a week, once a month, there's absolutely no cost to them to do this. It's a free service. How often do you get that free lunch? Not often. So
I'm trying to remember.
So we strongly advise all the participants in our classes to come and see us individually, because it is, you mentioned it earlier, how often are we willing to talk about our finances out in the open?
Right.
We prefer to do that. And I'll tell you what, they're not only willing in a one-on-one session to talk about their finances, but a lot of other information we really don't need to know about.
Right. Well, but I will say this: in this age of social media, we do play a lot of games with people. Like we'll present our profile on Facebook, and it looks like we got $1 million in the bank, and we're going to the Riviera every 2 weeks, and meanwhile we're eating ramen, and so. People have to learn how to be honest with themselves, right? Is that one of the primary things in your class?
Right. Well, being honest with themselves is a huge part of it, and having a safe and confidential space to come in and really talk through what's going on in their lives.
Okay.
And the best part about our classes is that they can meet with us once or twice or 6 times. So we'll be there to support them throughout their financial journey, whether it's buying their first home, they come in, we do a credit check, they've got a little work to do. We see them 6 months later, things are looking up, we've got a down payment saved now. Now we're reminding them of the next steps. Then they buy their house. And you know what? A baby comes along.
Yeah, life transitions.
Life changes a little bit. And
Surprise!
so, right.
Yeah.
So we're there to help them through each of those stages.
So what I'm understanding here is Homeword isn't just getting people into a home, right? It's basically living a successful financial life.
Oh, absolutely. We are getting people to the top of the mountain. I have a little visual of climbing the M, and next to the picture of the M are all the different markers we're going to hit financially. It starts with your budget and your credit plan, but then we're going into retirement, investing, insurance, making sure you have a tax strategy.
If you don't mind, because this is a 30-minute program,
yes.
Let's kind of touch each of those
Sure.
as you're going up. So you mentioned obviously you got the budget down, and then you start what?
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, because you took it back to the classes. So with the first time homebuyer, this is the long answer here. The first time homebuyer class, it is hard information, and people walk away with a lot of questions. Yeah. And then that's where Homeward wants to have this, net to catch you and say, don't worry, you can come to the financial fitness class, and we can dive into more of those building blocks. So some of those questions are answered. So we do get a little more personal in the financial fitness class. Like the way I start off my class is introduce yourself to your neighbor and let them know something you spend money on that you feel is a need, but if you were going to become homeless, it's actually a want. And
right.
So that's how I start off that class. And we don't get too personal, beyond that. But
I've got to have a $5 latte every morning, right?
Oh, usually that's it. And then we calculate that latte factor, and you could be saving yourself $1,000 a year, and then that's where your down payment starts. But in that class,
I'll drink to that.
$1,500,
Yeah.
$5 a day.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead, repeat that, because that wasn't on mic. Go ahead, Brandon.
So yeah, $5 latte a day, 365 days. That's approaching $1,700 a year.
I mean, I can't even tell you, especially back to the one-on-one counseling, where else are you going to go to get an individualized debt management plan or an individualized credit plan, or, and so in the class, we start with that budgeting, how to match that budgeting to the bank account, because it's just a dead piece of paper if you don't know how to do that.
Right.
The credit, then we do investing, where we get a financial advisor who comes in.
Can we take one step back? Let's talk about credit.
Sure.
How do we know, first of all, and I'm asking for people who never had a credit check before, how do we know if we're good, if our credit is good or bad?
Can we say it together? Annualcreditreport.com.
Wow. Hope they pay you money for that. Yeah.
Well, it's the free, where you go to get your free copy of your actual credit report.
Okay.
It's not going to have a score on it from the 3 primary credit reporting bureaus, but it does have the information on it. So if there is something that's a mistake, and what does Greg like to say? 1 in 5 has mistakes on it, or 1 in 4? And it may be little. It might be a transposed address, or it might be big. You may have a car you didn't know about.
Right.
So those are the kind of things that you can see on there.
I will give you one example. When I was 19 years old, living on my own, I bought some magazine subscriptions because it was such a great deal.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I'll have stuff to read. And of course, I never read them, and they kept coming. And after a while, I just
forgot.
Just threw them out. And then I went to buy a car, and they said, "Ooh, you got a credit problem here. You got a default on this magazine subscription thing." So they found out what it was. I went ahead and I took care of it. I paid it off.
Yeah.
Right. And it took a while for them to realize that I had paid it off.
Yeah.
But then now my credit's really good. But a lot of folks don't know that.
Yes, and a lot of folks are monitoring their credit through Credit Karma or Mint. We'll just give them a score, but it's not going to give you the full accurate detail. So we teach people how to read their reports, because I've had a gentleman come to me at 28 who bought a pizza when he was 19, and now that $16 pizza is in collections for $600.
Oh my heavenly days!
Yeah, and that's a great story. But that's because he didn't know how to check his own credit, and it's just there's a lot of ways we keep maintenance on our house or our lives, and you have to do maintenance on your financial life as well and protect yourself. I mean, it's not too hard, but you do have to be shown. We can't just think up these things usually,
Right.
So, and in the class, we actually have a whole hour on collections and predatory lending, so people can realize if they're educated, predatory lending isn't as much of a factor.
Now, what is? Give me the definition. Predatory lending.
Well, it's a discussion, right? Because if you have someone who's uneducated, predatory lending can be a whole bunch of things. But if you have someone who knows knows what APR is, they know how to, see what that would cost them monthly, or read the terms and know what the words mean. Most people don't know what the words mean of their financial world.
One example, a brand new college student, a freshman, moves into, ABC dorm, and all of a sudden they get this big stack of credit card applications saying, "Hey, you're a student now. You can da-da-da-da."
Yeah.
And they get a credit card, and pretty soon, boom, they are in debt. Sometimes for life, right?
It actually goes beyond that, Peter. Like a student wouldn't know the difference between deferment and forbearance. And if they did, they would know that a forbearance is a way worse option for them. And now they're saying this is predatory because the loan officer on the other side of the phone is not educating them about the difference and steering them towards what's better for the bank as opposed to the consumer. Mm-hmm. So if people are educated, the predatory portion shrinks. And so my bias is that we need to build that financial judgment and that education so that we don't have to rely on regulation or other things to help with
student debt.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the probably number one barrier that most younger people, and even honestly older folks at this point in time, the fastest growing borrowers for student loans are over the age of 60.
Wow.
Yeah, scary.
Ouch.
So it's not just it's a young people's problem, but it's not just a young people's problem.
Student loan debt is second behind mortgages at $1.52 trillion, which is hard to make that number
more
mean something.
Than credit card debt.
More than credit card debt, more than auto loan. But the default rate we just looked up is 10.7%.
But here's the problem. Even if you go bankrupt, the student loan remains.
Yep, they do not go away.
You have to pay it off, right?
That's right.
There's so much more you need to know about that.
Right.
And we spent a whole hour on student loans in my financial fitness class,
Right,
which is
right.
invaluable. There's something called capitalization, where if you switch statuses, your interest becomes the principal. And now your interest is accruing interest besides the principal. People can easily double their balances just by going out of payment status and non-payment status and are never really told that what's happening. So, they need to learn these things.
And people, are there people that literally throw up their hands and say, I give up? And then they get run over, right?
Well, and I've had people come in. A myth of buying your first home is I have student loans. I'm never going to be able to buy a home until they're paid off. And I feel like that's one of the big myths that we combat in our class and in our counseling sessions. Because there's so much more to it than that.
So I just want to back up a second and say this all started with credit. And I want to just reiterate that annualcreditreport.com is a federally sponsored website. We recommend that you pull one report from one of the agencies every 4 months. So you do TransUnion, wait 4 months, do Experian, wait 4 months, do Equifax. Then you do the cycle again. So you're entitled to a free report by federal law every 12 months from the 3 agencies. So this whole conversation started. You can't bury your head in the sand, throw your arms up and say, I'm not going to deal with this. You have to deal with it if you want to make a a stable financial picture for yourself.
So believe it or not, we only have 4 minutes left of the program. So we've been going on and on here. But tell us how Homeword can help our listeners. What kind of things can they come to you to get done?
I want to appreciate Brendan for giving that specific tidbit because it is our philosophy in the education program that we teach people how to fish. We make sure that they are not dependent on us. It's not like they're paying us or we're just giving a plan. We're teaching people how to safeguard themselves for the future, educate themselves for the future, all of those things. So that's what people get when they come to us with our free program. It's kind of incredible.
So in 2.5 minutes, let's talk about actually getting a home.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I think we help people to do is build their team because we bring in professionals 9 hours worth of it. It takes a large team to help you make this large financial decision. And how you go about building that team is really going to affect your home buying experience. So one of the big things that we help people with is finding their teammates in this process so that they have a good, strong knowledge base to pull from. So it's not just them having to rely on Uncle Google.
Well, and the other thing that I can see happening with this process is people feeling more confident and more in control of their finances, whether they have a few or a lot, right?
Empowerment's huge.
Go ahead.
Well, that's what, and you said it earlier, that knowledge is power, and that's what we're trying to instill in everyone is the knowledge to become successful. Whether it's the decision to buy a home or not to buy the home, they've made the decision because they've been educated. And
it really doesn't matter if you buy a home or not. You still have this credit history, these things that will follow you for the rest of your life, right?
Absolutely. And can confidently go forward with that decision. I want to be a homeowner or no, thank you.
There's many strategies out there, and we always say hope is a terrible financial plan. And so whether you buy the home or not, we help people develop a plan and make it to, make it.
Right. And I imagine by the time they're done and they're feeling confident, and especially if it's a couple, they're talking again, right? And so
yes.
I'm sure lots of marriages and relationships have been saved because they got on the same page financially.
When
right?
Brendan says people talk to us about things that we, wish they didn't talk. Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. More often than not, actually. But we respectfully are there for them,
right.
And it's so helpful
because our finances are so much a part of our lives.
So when's the next class?
Our next class is going to be the homebuyer class is December 15th,
and the financial fitness class is December 8th.
Yep. And if those classes, I believe, are all the way full right now, or at least the home buyer is.
Nope. The financial fitness class, you can sign up today on our website.
Awesome.
Okay.
Homeword.org. HOMEWORD.org.
You read my mind. So how about a phone number?
406
532-4663. Extension 10 is the general office administrator, Erin, and she's wonderful.
Excellent. Thanks, you guys. Katie and Julie and Brendan, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. And you guys have a wonderful day.
Happy holidays.
Yes, and we will talk to you again next week, everybody. Thanks for tuning into Missoula Real Estate Today. We hope you found the information over the last 30 minutes to be helpful. If you have any suggested topics for future Missoula Real Estate Today programs, or any questions about buying or selling real estate, please email Diane. Here's the address. It's dianebeck@realtor.com. That's dianebeck@realtor.com. We'll see you next week on NewsTalk KGBO.com, 98.3 FM and 1290 AM.